Hey guys, how you all doing? Just want to do a quick video. It's that time of year again. Black Friday's been. I've got myself a little gem. I've got myself the Zen 5 Ryzen 7 9700X to replace my 7700. And on the run up to Black Friday, I was just like reading what everyone's saying, just see what would be a good sort of processor to get if the price was right. And I was seeing a lot of recommendations for the 7800X3D. And basically, I think you can have it now for about £330 thereabouts. Obviously, on release it was around £400, $400. Um, and now it's sort of getting down to that 300 sort of area. Um, and yeah, it's a good chip, but I wouldn't personally be recommending it. It's a good processor for a very niche use case, which we'll discuss as well. But it just gave me a good idea for a video to see how the 8-core 16-thread processors have evolved from Zen 3 to Zen 4 to Zen 5. I've had all of them now. So I do have a 5800X, which is the AM4 Zen 3 processor using DDR4 memory. And then the Zen 4 equivalent was the 7700 or the 7700X. One's a 65 watt processor, one's a 105 watt processor. But if you just enable PBO, you basically remove that restriction, sorry, and you have a 7700X, albeit a 100 megahertz deficit. But again, you can make up for that as well. And then as for the 9700X, the latest and greatest, it's again a 65 watt part, but it's got so much headroom in it, and it is a bit of a beast. So these are the Ryzen 7 processors here, which we're going to be sort of mainly concentrating on the 5700X, because that's basically a 5800X when unlocked. And then the 7700 and the 7700X, which is basically the same thing. And then obviously the new 9700X. And then I'll be just sort of be doing a comparison to the 7800X3D and why I think it's probably not the best processor for most people. Because everyone's saying, yeah, it's the best gaming CPU. Well, why does it have to be a gaming CPU? Why can't you just have an all-round great processor? Don't get me wrong, the new 9800X3D, that's a great chip, and that is worth considering if you can afford it. But the price difference here, like on the release, you can see that the 9700X is $360 on release against $370 for the X3D. But you can get a tray 9700X for about £200. I got mine for 175 off AliExpress with a Black Friday voucher. So I've basically saved myself near enough £150. And we're going to discuss why I think it's probably worth going maybe that way, even like the 7700X rather than the X3D variant. But I've done some testing. I'm going to do some results. Obviously, I haven't got a 7800X 3D, but we can compare the specs. So let's do that. Let's have a look at the 9700X here on Tech Power Up, where we highlighted the AMD Ryzen 7s. And we can see that obviously we said the 5700X and the 5800X, they're basically the same. As soon as you unlock PBO, you change in your 5700X to a 5800, and that makes up for the difference. And then the 7700 and the 7700X, they're basically the same. You can see that the base clock is 3.8 to 4.5, 5.3 to 5.4 on the boost clock. But like I say, when you enable PBO, set the power management to the motherboard, it basically becomes the same processor. The reason I went for the 7700 over the 7700X at the time, 7700X was maybe £20 more, and the 7700 actually came with a Wraith cooler, which is quite a nice little sort of heatsink fan. So that was the choice I made at the time. the 9700X and the 7800X 3D, they don't come with any fan, they just come in the retail packaging. And like I say, the 9700X I purchased was a tray processor, so it just came in a little plastic case. But you can see that the max clock of the Ryzen 7 7800X 3D is only 5 gig, so it's missing out about 500 megahertz to the 9700X, but it does have that 96 megabytes of L3 3D V cache. But you can see it's 120 watts, so compared to 65, so it pulls a lot more power, and that is the issue with the 7800X 3D. It has the 3D V cache on top of the CCD, so it's very hard to get that heat away from the core. And basically you need a really good cooler or do a direct dye solution to try to get the heat away from the processor to get those good sort of consistent boost clocks. Whereas it's no issue with the non 3D cache parts. The new 9800X 3D is different. They've swapped it around, so the 3D V cache is underneath the core, I believe. So it could just, that's why the reason it clocks a lot higher. And I think they have released, or there's some rumors going around of a 9850X 3D that's from 5.1 gig to 5.5, but you could do that anyway with playing about with your PBO settings. So yeah, that's the specs of the processors. Let's just quickly go over the testing sort of methodology as usual, and then we'll do to the conclusion. Sorry, I got sidetracked. So I just wanted to quickly look at the current pricing before we go over the results. But you can see on Amazon.co.uk, looks like there's none in stock at the minute, but it's around £250. And then this was the listing on AliExpress that I did. So it was just like I say, it was just a tray processor, no retail packaging, just comes in those little plastic packages. There'll be some pictures down here, yeah, just like that. And yeah, if you're happy to do that, you don't want the box, then you're saving yourself sort of £40. AliExpress always has vouchers on, so like I did, you can probably save a little bit on that as well. But for the 7800X 3D, let's have a look at that. So 325, 330, 360 for the. So I'm surprised that they haven't come down more, because obviously the 9800X 3D is a lot better processor, especially when it comes to multi-threaded sort of applications. Gaming wise, yeah, there might not be a massive difference, but it is a lot better processor. And you can see 5.2 gig max. You can easily with PBO get that to 5.5 gig, and a lot of people have done that as long as you've got adequate cooling. But yeah, like I say, I think even if the 7800X 3D was down at, I don't know, 275 or something, I still would probably not consider it really, because of that issue with the 3D V cache being on the top and struggling to cool it and getting sort of consistent sort of boost clocks, especially if, like me, you're into, you want to tune things and get the best out of your hardware. So yeah, I just thought I'd have a quick look at that, and just to show you what I was thinking price wise. But yeah, let's get into the testing methodology and results. So testing wise, I'm going to be using my Gigabyte Aurorus Elite B650 motherboard. Memory is going to be Vengeance 6000 mega transfer memory at CL36. It's tuned slightly, so it's 6200 CL34. The graphics card I'm going to be using is my MSI Inspire 5080. So these are the titles that are utilities I'm going to be testing. So I'm going to do some Cinebench results. I'm going to do some CPU bound titles like Shadow of the Tomb Raider and Valley as well, the benchmark. And then Cyberpunk, the built-in benchmark, just because it's really good. A Hogwarts Legacy, and then I've also done Memtest 64 just as a comparison that we can see through the generational, sort of developments of the processor. So let's close that down a minute. So let's have a look at Cinebench. Zoom. Let's have a look at Cinebench then. So we've got all three generations sort of covered here. Ryzen 7, we've got Zen 3, Zen 4, Zen 5. And I should say, I don't know if I've already mentioned, but these are all tuned. I don't do stock. So these are all been like, they've all had the power limit increased. They're all like utilizing curve optimizer. They've all got the boost clock increased. And the scalar has also been increased. So the 9800X, obviously this is DDR4, but this is getting a score of 30. I've just times these by 10 just for scaling on the graph. So we've got 30 for the 5800X, 37.8 for the 7700, and then 44.6 for the 9700X. So we've roughly got 25%, is that 25% from the 5800X to the 7700, and then about 18% from the 7700 to the 9700X. For the multi-threaded 2024 benchmark, we've got 905 for the 5800X, then it jumps to 1210 for the 7700. This is a lot more memory intensive, so this big bump or big increase is probably explained from the jump from DDR4 to DDR5, as well as the architectural improvements from Zen 3 to Zen 4. But we've still got quite a nice increase from Zen 4 to Zen 5. So we can see we've got 1210 to 1430. So that's about 18%. I should have done this before, shouldn't I? What am I doing? Let's have a gander. So 1430, 1210, 18%. 18%, and I think that's around 25%. And then for the single threaded, we can work this out. So we can see that the 5800X has got a single threaded score of 100. The 7700 has got a 122, so 22% increase. And then 144 to 122. Again, I think it's about a 16% increase on the single threaded performance for the newer Zen 5. Moving on to some CPU bound testing. These are titles where the GPU is basically just sitting there, probably about 30% utilization, and the CPU is doing all the work. So we've done Shadow of the Tomb Raider on low settings. These are all 1080p, and then we've got Unigine Valley as well. So we can see from going from the 5800X in Valley, we're going from 213.6 frames per second to 271.4 on the 7700, giving us a 27% increase. And then when we go from the 7700 to the 9700X, we go to 335.9, which is a further 24% increase over the 7700. For the Shadow of the Tomb Raider, we're going from 251 frames per second on the 5800X to 307, which is a 22% increase. And then from the 7700 to the 9700X, we're gaining another further 18% increase, going to 362. Just while we're here, I've been looking on the performance of the 7800X 3D with similar settings, but not exactly the same. I think I could only, this is on low, Shadow of the Tomb Raider on 1080p low, but I've seen 1080p lowest setting, so I don't know if it would make any difference or not. But on lowest setting, that's about 420, which works out about, I don't know, 10% thereabouts increase over the 9700X. So yeah, it is a bit quicker in purely CPU bound scenarios. But then if we went back to the Cinebench results, the 7800X is probably about 1100, so it's even below the 7700 in multi-threaded, and then single threaded it's about 110, so again it's even below the 7700. So it's sort of, you got to sort of take the whole sort of picture really, and the whole thing, this is the best gaming CPU. It's situational, which we'll go into in the conclusion. So Cyberpunk, why is this not going big? Go big, go big. So Cyberpunk, so this is 1080p. It's on the Ray Trace Ultra setting, and we enabled the upscaler DLSS on the quality setting just to make it more CPU intensive. I haven't got the 5800X results on this, but this is just the 7700 and 9700X. So we can see on the 7700, we've got an average of 85.5 frames per second. Sorry, I'm looking at the wrong bar. 141 frames a second with a 1% low of 99. And then the GPU utilization is 85.5%. And then moving to the 9700X, the average jumps up to 151 to and then 106 on the 1% low with a 90.5% average GPU utilization. So I don't know if you're aware of this benchmark, the internal benchmark within Cyberpunk, but it's the majority of it is going to be GPU bound. And then at the end of the benchmark, it goes into this big open area and the camera's moving really fast. There's a lot of stuff going on. And the CPU utilization in that bit goes up to 80% pretty much. And this extra boost clock that this 9700X, as well as probably some small sort of IPC improvements, allows it to sort of stretch its legs a little bit in that last section. So that's why we're increasing the GPU utilization to 90.5%. Over the previous 80.5, which is nice. And this shows it, this Hogwarts Legacy, this shows it even more. So on the 7700, again, this is 1080p. There's no upscaling on this. It's just got the NVIDIA DLA anti-aliasing. I can never say that word. Enabled. And we can see we go from 80% GPU usage to 95%. So that's pretty much fully optimized the GPU. And we're going from 150.5 frames a second to 178. And then the 1% lows go from 127 to 145. So that's a 14.2% increase on the 1% lows, and then near enough 20% increase on the averages, which is a good improvement. And then finally, we're just going to go into the MemTest 64. So this is just it's a memory stress test really, but I've used it as I've used it before as well in some other videos, but I've used it just to do some benching for the performance of the memory. So we do 10 loops, 15,360 megabytes, and we're just doing the test. It's just running those loops 10 times, quicker the better. And then this is showing in seconds. So the 5800X is all the way up there at 825 seconds. Obviously, this is DDR4. The memory used in this was 3600 at CAS16. And then the 7700 and the 9700, these are both using the same memory settings and speeds and everything. The only difference is the CPUs themselves. So obviously the 7700 and the 9700X, the core or the boost clock is slightly different. So the boost clock on the 9700X can go up to about, on single threaded, it goes to about 5,850, or was it 5,800, there or thereabouts, where the 7700 is about 200 megahertz less than that. So this is the difference you probably see in there. So obviously there might be small IPC improvements again for the Zen 5 over the Zen 4, but it's probably primarily to do with the higher clock speed. It's like a 20-second difference there. So let's get into the conclusion and why I think maybe the 7800X3D is not probably the processor for you. Right, rant time. I mean conclusion time. So like I said earlier on, the 7800X3D is faster in a very niche sort of scenario, and that's when you're playing 1080p low settings, you're playing like competitive games where you're not interested in graphical quality, you just like want the maximum frame rate to try to reduce your graphical latency. And yeah, I think you have to be realistic with yourself. How many of us just play purely competitive titles. If you are in that sort of, in that group of people, then fine, yeah, go for the 7800 if that's all you care about. But when you look at the 9700X performance on multi-threaded, single-threaded, every other scenario, it's quicker. Like multi-threaded, single-threaded, like I say, you're sort of anywhere between sort of 15 and near enough 25% quicker than the well, it's probably closer to 30% quicker than the 7800 3D in multi-threaded. I play at 4K, so I'm not interested. I'm always purely GPU bound, so CPU bottlenecks aren't really a thing. And I think that's going to be the case for most people. I think you just need to be honest with yourself. It's like, what games are you playing? What monitor do you play on? Are you playing on, like, if you're playing on a 120 hertz monitor, then is there any benefit to going any higher than that? But then again, this 9700X can easily do 120 hertz. It's like not an issue. It can like do that no problem. So again, you have to be honest with yourself and just go through, just think what you're playing. So if you're playing anything other than 1080p low, if you're playing like sort of 1440p, quad HD ultra wide, 4K, in those situations, you're going to be much more GPU bound, and it's just not worth getting that processor. Like I said earlier on, the 9800X3D is it's a bit of a hybrid, so it's a master of both things really, because it does clock a bit higher. Overall, the 9700X is more powerful on multi-threaded scenarios, but the margin or the gap is a lot closer. But the 7800X 3D is not in that. It's not in that position. It is a lot slower, and that's why the price you can get it for, like around 300, 330, I wouldn't really recommend it at all. I think if it came down to maybe 200, I would probably maybe consider it. But there's still better options out there, like the 9700X at like 200. I think it's a no-brainer. So yeah, just be like mindful. Just think carefully what type of games you play, what resolution you play at, whether you're interested in more graphical fidelity or all out sort of frame rate. If you are playing those competitive titles. But I'm pretty certain for 99.9% of people, the 9700X is a much better processor. Like it's snappier in Windows, like the operating system is going to run better. I just can't see a downside. And for what, maybe 10 to 15%, maybe the 7800X 3D is quicker in those very niche sort of situations. But yeah, that's a quick sort of rant over. But I'm definitely happy with this 9700X. I've already sold my 7700, and I sold it for pretty much the price I bought my 9700X for. So I'm at no loss. So it was a great purchase. So yeah, be careful out there when you're buying your recommendation processors. Just think long and hard before purchasing. There is more news saying that AMD is increasing their prices by 10%. So it might be time to quickly get online and buy something if you're on the fence of thinking about buying something before Christmas. So, but yeah, with that out of the way, guys, anyway, any comments, let me know. Any sort of questions or queries, I'm happy to answer. And see you in the next one.